What up, though, people? This is your boy, Brandon Dent, a.k.a. Detroit Kool-Aid. Look who I got. I found, here we go, man, the celebrity here.
Oh, my
Mr.
gosh.
Everything, Jeff
Hey.
Iafrate. Listen, y'all, we got him for a few minutes. I couldn't be more ecstatic. I'm going to try and snag him as well after the morning Woodward show. But let's get this drum roll going for Detroit News, Rod Beard. Let's go. Hey, yo. Shout out to the legend. I got a chance to see him last night, Rod Beard, at the game against Utah Jazz. He embraced me. It was pretty cool. I got to talk with him, Vinny Goodwill, Corey Woods, Mike Curtis, a couple of the other beat writers. Shout out Mari and James.
That's a lineup, though.
It was a lineup, man. It was nice. It was nice last night. It was very, very nice. It was a cool environment, too. I wish the Pistons would have pulled it out because the rookies, boy, they gave us a lot.
Yeah,
they gave us a lot last night. But, Jeff, I want the thoughts of Mr. Jeff Iafrate, man. We got a couple weeks to catch up on. Where's your head at right now on Detroit Pistons basketball?
Similar to where it was before. I think the big thing for me is when Cade was officially ruled out. I mean, we kind of expected that. Moving forward, my expectations don't really change. You knew this team was going to struggle this year, and now you don't have Cade Cunningham, and you're seeing the effect it has on guys, both positively and negatively. Starting with Jaden Ivey, too. For Jaden Ivey, that's kind of been the guy I've been watching the most. Obviously, that's going to be your guy for the future next to Cade. And without Cade, you've seen at times him struggle, kind of adjusting to being that Batman role, having that Batman role, taking on more of an offensive and defensive burden. But for guys like Killian Hayes too, man, I mean, he's real. I've been super impressed with Killian, and I know people have talked about it, and it's been a reoccurring thing to talk about, but it never gets old to talk about it, man. I mean, Killian Hayes, for what he was to start the season in the last 2 years to right now, stepping in, Dwayne trusting him to play starter minutes and not giving up on him, because that was the big thing. And you saw those quotes by Dwayne come out early in the year talking about, well, listen, the leash is super long this year. It's not a year where you're contending for the playoffs where mistakes are going to cost Killian. He's allowing him to make mistakes. And the fact that he trusted him so much to give him that starter role, I think that's been the biggest thing, and I've enjoyed watching that the most. And obviously, finally starting Jalen Duren, because we've talked about this multiple times on the podcast. Yep. When will it happen? Is it going to happen 30 games in? Will it happen 10 games in? And you're saying it now, 30 games in, Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, the dog pound, the front court that I think gives opposing offenses and opposing teams some fear when those guys are down there, muscling you up. It's terrifying. And you saw a little bit of it last night at times. I know defensively as a team, it's been frustrating to watch as a whole. I mean, even last night, Lauri Markkanen looking like Larry Bird out there. Man could not miss a shot. Malik Beasley, another one. But really, I'm not looking at the wins and losses. I know that's cliche. We say that. But at the end of the day, it's about player development. This year was always about who's staying here long term, which guys we're going to keep around. And you're seeing a lot of positive things. I mean, the bench, to start off, the bench has been a big reason why this team has been in games and stayed in games. And that's the most important thing, because you find me a good team, I'll most likely find you a good bench. Now, you don't have a good team this year, but we have a damn good bench.
Say that one more time. Jeff Iafrate with his Iafrate-isms, y'all.
You find me a good team, I'm going to find you a good bench.
I love that.
And they have a great bench, but again, it just stinks because I keep having these reoccurring thoughts, and I'm sure you have too. Watching the games, you're like, and they're staying, like the Nets, for example. They play a great first half, and even last night, you're in it in the first half, and in the second half, collapse. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, man, if Cade was here, that's the dude that when things are going wrong or things are getting stressful, give the ball to Cade, allow him to work, and everything becomes a little more easier to digest. Everyone gets a little more easier shots. And last night, and even a lot of games this year, I mean, you've missed Cade, so that's been a glaring thing I just can't help but bring up. But overall, I think player development has been a positive for me, and that's all I'm looking for, man. I mean, our guys taking that next step. The most frustrating thing for me is not having Cade and Ivey to play together and develop that chemistry. Next year is going to be their first year together, which, again, it's frustrating, but at the same time, man, these rookies taking steps. Duren at 19 years old. 19 years old. I mean, for him and his maturity, the guy's a walking double-double, and what he brings defensively is something special. So I've been impressed with the young guys, man. And even looking at the older players like Bojan, Alec Burks, those are guys you might have to think about keeping. Like Bojan, yes, if you want to flip him, I get that argument. He's going to be 34, 35 next year. But Alec Burks, Kevin Knox, Can we talk about that too? I mean, 2 years, $6 million deal with a team option, and he's playing well.
And one of the highest defensive ratings on the team in the last 5 to 10 games.
There you go, man. I mean, value is the most important thing. And what Troy's paying Kevin Knox, we talked about, it's a reclamation project. He's been a solid bench player, and he's pretty much taken Hamidou Diallo's spot. He has not given it back. And I've been on this podcast talking about how frustrating it is to watch Kevin Knox early in the year. I take those back, and I had a personal apology sent out to Kevin Knox because he's been playing really well. So overall, with the job, with the cards Dwayne's given and the hand he has, I'm not too upset with the season as a whole. No. Man, you expect this team to be in the lottery, and that's exactly how it's trending.
To start the season, we thought at best this team could compete for the play-in. We wondered and pondered, could they compete for the 6th spot, which means they're just above the play-in. Yeah. We all said no, that's not going to happen. We tried to,
and that was with Cade. That was with Cade.
That was with Cade. We thought play-in was their at best scenario. Without Cade, with the start of the season being, just littered with injuries, there was no way this team was going to have any foundation. They're just now starting to figure each other out as players, and that's still without Cade Cunningham. You said something very, very interesting too. I've continued to sit here and say, with the way that Jaden Ivey looks, the skill sets he has, the answers, that he has for the questions, we were wondering, what has he been asked to do? Mm-hmm. He's looking more like a Batman, like a superhero rather than a sidekick, like the lead guy. And I've said it often too. He and Cade to me are like a Batman and a Superman rather than a Batman and a Robin.
It's a good point.
So I'm glad that he's getting this opportunity right now to go out there and actually, I believe for the first time, get to play like that. We noticed in college they catered the system around what? Outside, and I mean inside then out. And it wasn't as if they just allowed him to just ball dominate. His usage rate right now is up compared to what it was in college. And over the last 2 games, he's had halves where he's put up 13, 14, 15 points.
Efficiently. That's been the big thing for
30
me.
Points on. I got the stats here from the Utah Jazz game last night, man. Shout out Steve Stuckey. He definitely makes sure we're hooked up in the press room, man.
Yeah,
he comes through and gets us the stuff right away. But 30 points, man, on 10 of 14 shooting, 2 of 2 from 3. And here's the big one, 8 of 11 from free throws.
That's the big one.
Yep, he's been down. I wrote about this a couple times. I said the Pistons really need to start pressing the issue with his calls, because I believe that I'm not crying about the fouls. I think largely the Pistons have been given a good whistle, but Jaden Ivey in particular, sometimes it can be hard to call those types of players. He's a rookie, but that man is getting to the rack with ferocity. Mm-hmm. And I believe someone told him, if they're not giving you the call, you better start putting people on posters. Because the last couple games, this just seemed like he's attacked the rim even harder, bro.
Right.
So yeah, I'm happy with Jaden Ivey. I'm happy with Jalen Duren. The rookies, they led the way. 15 points, 14 rebounds for Jalen Duren on 7 of 9 shooting. So it was just all efficient all the way around. They kept the fouls in check, but ultimately they needed a little bit more help. And you're right. It was just a Cade Cunningham, sized gap in this team right now in their performance.
And one thing, I went on Bryson Koo. Bryson Koo no doubt about defense. I went on Bryson Koo's their watch along. They do the stream, and shout out to them for inviting me on. And one thing Bryce brought up, which I thought was a great point, I didn't really think about this, with Killian Hayes starting, isn't he kind of playing the role of a Cade Cunningham right now?
Yep.
So, and again, Cade offers more scoring, obviously, but in terms of Ivey and playing next to Cade, they're missing out on that development time, but he's playing alongside an unselfish point guard who does multiple different things. I mean, Killian Hayes, if he'll have a stat sheet of 15, 7, and 7. Like that sounds like someone to me. I mean, with more scoring, but that sounds like Cade Cunningham. I mean, able to fill the stat sheet. So, although it's not exactly what we're seeing, you'd rather Killian come off the bench because your team's that much better. At the same time, he is playing in a similar role, and maybe that's been better for Ivey too. I mean, you're playing with a similar point guard, minus the scoring, obviously, in the versatility, but still, nonetheless, Ivey's been impressive, man. I mean, the last 2 games, he's been efficient. You saw the video. I think Corey posted, shout out to Corey Woods, of him working after practice, shooting 3-point shots. I think he stayed for like an hour, he said, after practice just to shoot. And then following that workout video, he plays well. And that was the game before this game. And then he plays well last night against the Utah Jazz. So again, rookies that want to work, and you see Duren putting in the work. So that's been the most positive thing, is when these rookies hit a wall, you know they're going to overcome it. And Ivey so far, after struggling for a week or two, he's come out of it, man. He's looked good. He really has. I think the shot selection has been a big one for me, because you're seeing last night being more efficient, not forcing things, and when he does, he's drawing fouls. So that's part of it. I mean, hey, welcome to being a rookie. Like those are things he's going to adjust to. But Duren, to me, has been the biggest shock. 19 years old, putting up 15, 14, and come on.
Well, I clap for that boy.
19 years old, bro. Like, I can't imagine what his upside's going to be. He's going to be a monster.
Here's the question: is he the next Pistons great big?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. You're this good at 19 years old. He's putting up stats. I'm not saying he's Dwight Howard, but he's in that conversation of his age and the stats he's putting up in terms of rebounds, doubles. He's gonna be. I mean, especially at 13.
And I see flashes of the offensive polish.
Absolutely,
I see the flashes,
and you're seeing it too. And I think there's a lot more there. Obviously, it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
But Troy came out and said this before the season. I would have took him at 5, and that just kind of tells you how they feel about Duren. So
everybody shuddered. We sat on this pod and we said, "Yo, we need to see who this guy is," because we pondered. We sat here and we said, "Yo, there were some small reports stating we got to see who he's going to be. Maybe he goes on to the G League."
Right.
But then Casey came out and said Sean Kemp. Troy Weaver came out and said we would have taken him with the 5th pick. We would have taken him higher. Then we're just like, whoa, who is this guy? And now we're really starting to see it. We said, and it's starting to really, really blow my mind, because I'm like, people wondered, well, can he at least give us Andre Drummond? And Andre Drummond never had the ability to do what you stated Jalen Duren could do, and that's just play within your game.
Yeah.
Play on the offensive side of things, play to your strengths, play within your game. I don't see Jalen Duren do something 2 times in a row that's just bad on offense. Like,
he doesn't
Andre
force
Drummond,
the issue.
Right.
You don't see that typically, even for 19 years old.
Yep. How many hook shots do you see Jalen Duren does that Jalen Duren do that hits the backboard? And I used to see Drummond do stuff like that all the time, and then come back down and do it again. And you guys know I'm a Drummond supporter. This is just one of the critiques to the game. And so as it relates to Jalen Duren, it is refreshing to see a rookie who has this basketball IQ about him, because usually you don't know with these rookies. You got to see who they're going to be. And if the IQ and the skill set are there together, because sometimes, like with Killian Hayes, I believe he has a very high basketball IQ.
Yeah, super.
But
super
sometimes the skill, the confidence is not matching. With Duren, he's putting it all together. And obviously, I believe he's going to be the next great Pistons big man in history.
No, I completely agree. And I got to go to do the morning show, but I want to say this before I leave too. For the rest of the season, for people frustrated about Dwayne Casey, and this is the thing, and I've been, and people come at me for defending Dwayne, call it what you want, but I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to somebody who's in this type of situation, and people want to critique different things early in the year. It's rotations. Well, you see the bench and how well he's figured out the rotation in terms of who he wants to play. At least most Pistons fans can accept who he's playing. I don't have an issue with that. I think Diallo, I think he's not playing over Kevin Knox. Mm-hmm. And then, so I'm fine with the rotation he currently has. Now, taking guys out at different times, there's going to be things you can critique, but overall, the fact of the matter is, I think Dwayne, with his consistency, he's that stable voice. Sean always says this, stable voice in the locker room. And I wouldn't want anybody else but Dwayne right now here. And we'll see for the future, but I think he's done a good job just keeping these guys in check, holding them accountable. And you're seeing the progression. I don't care what anybody says. If you want to say, well, there's no player development, I disagree. I'm seeing guys take that next step. Now, as a team, they're terrible defensively. Nobody's going to argue that. But at the end of the day, man, you just want these guys to get better. This isn't a season where you're contending for the playoffs. So,
and you know what?
Improvement is all I ask for. And Dwayne's been doing that.
And I'll send you away with this to the Morning Woodward show. Last night, Jaden Ivey stated he's working on weaknesses right now. I told you all, this is a year of player development. You know what part of his game he said he's working on and who he's working on it with? Mid-range floaters, mid-range pull-ups.
That's what he needs.
Mid-range game. And he's working with Alec Burks on it, who's shown to be very, very proficient. Money at that.
Yeah.
This should make all your ears perk up when you hear Jaden Ivey say, this is what I'm working on. Because what is he going to be by next year? He hit a couple floaters last night, and I remarked, me and Corey were talking, I was like, yo, people remarked, oh, he hit a floater.
And that, what's funny you say that, because I talked with Sean about this on From Half Court. I wish you talk the Ja Morant comparisons again. those things are going to never go away because of their athleticism. But what Ja does so well is Ja doesn't have a mid-range shot, but he has a terrific, he has a floater game that is immaculate, and he can hit. I'm telling you, and doing that and being efficient in that, it's going to boost Jaden Ivey's scoring average by 4-6 points just by being efficient. You can be able to shoot threes and attack the basket, but that in between area, that mid-range area, which guys, he's coming at you full speed. Guys are going to have to back up. They're going to have to go to the rim. Boom, hit a floater. If Ivey can implement that in his game, he's going to be even more dangerous. So the fact that you say that right now, man, that's the way to go for Ivey. It's not about, you don't have to have a pull-up mid-range game, but I'm telling you, someone that athletic, add a floater, baby. He gonna be nasty.
Jeff Iafrate, mother freaking Iafrate.
Man, next Wednesday, I'm gonna try and be here. We'll knock out an episode, but we are doing our trends, which we can record that.
Yeah.
We got some things to talk about.
And tomorrow we got Mr. Kuka Hill.
Oh yeah, that'll be good.
He'll be here with Jeff and I. He'll be live streaming, and I'm trying to get him in studio. I'm gonna hit him up again to see if we can do that.
Oh, that'd be cool too.
That would be dope. But yeah.
No, appreciate you guys, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Rod, I know if Rod was here, he'd make a joke about me.
He's gonna be on today.
Listen, Rod, I can already predict it. He's gonna say he's too Hollywood for us, and there's a car outside waiting to pick him up. All that stuff is false.
Y'all don't hear that?
I wish I had a
you guys don't hear that? Look, when he goes outside the studio, I'm sure you guys gonna hear the car motor.
Man, shout out to Rod, the legend.
Hey, man, Jeff, always, man, love you, Brody. Knock out the show.
I got you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, hey, look, it's always a good time when I have Jeff Iafrate on. Like I said, this is a platform that I try to keep going forward, and we have some more team members and good content on the way as well. It's a lot on the way. We got a draft show that will be weekly, and fresh content served up as the news comes out as well. And as the Pistons kind of get closer to knowing where they will fall and the types of deals that may come forward and the types of players that they should be looking at, we're going to make sure that we have that in-depthly covered. Jeff and I, we're going to be doing Pistons trends 2 to 3 times a week, where we just get together and we want you all to tell us what is it that you want us to kind of deep dive. Woodward Sports, I'm going to be doing and have been doing a lot of writing right now. I have an article up there on Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey and what both of them need to do now. I'll give you a hint. One of those things I wrote about before the game. I wrote about other times. I've been saying Dwayne Wade for Jaden Ivey, but he got to get that footwork in that mid-range game down. So it was very comforting again to hear him talk about the fact that now is what he's working on his development. He's not waiting until the offseason. I said some of these things in the article, some of these things can be worked on and should be worked on right now. It's not just about a draft pick. So it's good to see. Another thing I was going to talk about with Killian Hayes is Jeff hit the nail on the head. Shout out to Kuka Hill, shout out to Bryce, Simon of Motor City Hoops and the Pistons Pulse. He does a podcast with Amar Sankofa of the Detroit Free Press, their Pistons beat writer. Killian Hayes is not a player that needs to be put in a position to think. He's a player that needs to be put in a position to just go. That's what Killian Hayes is. When you look at his tapes from France, the thing that I think a lot of us miss is the fact that he's just calling his own shots. He's just getting out and playing what looks like a brand of kind of just rec ball, just getting out there and just going. But when you get him inside of an NBA situation with sets and where defense are going to basically shade to take away all of your strengths and push you more towards your weaknesses, this is what they pounce on. That's where he got into a little bit of trouble. And those things start to mess with your confidence because you can no longer do the things that you normally like to do. So now you got a Killian Hayes who's going out there and just kind of dejected, kind of shuttered, kind of playing within himself. You got the coaches saying, we don't know what happened. It's like, like someone just flipped the switch. So to see him now with Cade Cunningham out and now you have the ball in your hands, as a player personally, and I don't know if any of you all out there can relate who's ever played any sport. Sometimes it is easier when you have the ball in your hand. Sometimes it is easier when the pecking order is a little bit more clear and defined towards your favor. And it's not that having Cade Cunningham is a bad thing on Killian Hayes, but for Killian Hayes' development, it's not like he's gotten 2 to 3 years to just play as the man. As soon as he got drafted, it was bring the ball up the court and give it to Blake. Then they went out and drafted, Cade and they had Jeremy Grant here and all of that. So it's like he hasn't really had the time to just be Killian Hayes. Now he's starting to get that, and you're starting to see him have longer and more consistent good stretches. I believe he needs to pick it up a little bit more. I was a little bit disappointed with his offensive game last night, because there were shots to be had for him. And I think that Killian Hayes could have made a difference if his offense was a little bit more assertive. He was 2 of 8 last night, 0 of 2 from the 3-point land, and no free throws. That's probably the most disappointing thing. With what I saw of his game in France and what I see out of his game here, it just seems to be either a lack of confidence or a lack of skill for Killian to get to the rim, that burst or to finish through contact. So you see him a lot of times pulling up with floaters. You see him a lot of times getting into the middle, and instead of getting in at that 6'5" frame that he has and trying to draw a foul, he's doing like fadeaways and jump backs and things like that. And when he's on, it looks good. It does. But the problem is he's not that consistent with that. Those are going to be very, very low efficient shots. They're going to be inefficient shots to take. They're not going to be ones that he's going to be able to hit consistently. When you're in a hot zone and you've hit a couple of, bunnies and such, and maybe an open three, then those shots start to be the ones that pile in, especially when your confidence is on 10. So I want to see him get more aggressive. Killian Hayes has to be driving downhill more. He's getting better out of his bigs in the pick and roll game. Jalen Duren screen assists and screen rates and things of that nature are going up, 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 and up. You're seeing the point guard start to be able to throw him lobs more, which is something we were wondering if he could get done earlier in the season. So it was really, really good to see out of at least Jalen Duren's maturation in the pick and roll game. But Killian Hayes has to find a way to take better advantage of this. I believe he has good speed with the ball in his hands. He's very, very shifty ball handler. He can get around the first defender. And so when his mid range is not there, I don't want to really see Killian Hayes shooting that weird kind of floater game. I feel like that's his cop out. Some guys, they need the floater, and maybe Killian needs to develop that. But for right now, he needs to play to his strengths, and there's stuff that he's leaving out there on the court. As soon as you get around that first defender, pull up, man. That's that Cade-esque that we saw out of him during that nice 6 to 7, 8, 9 game stretch that he had before these couple clunkers. And I'll be fair to him. Last night, I thought playmaking wise, he was decent. He was tied for the lead in assists with 5 with Jaden Ivey, but with only 4 points, how much of a difference are those assists truly making? You just need more, point blank period, out of Killian Hayes. The other alarming thing, and I want to be able to talk about this a lot as well. The most alarming thing to me last night, and I tweeted this: no Stewart, no Duren, no rebounds. As soon as those guys go out the game, there's just a totally just different level of tenacity or a lack thereof. It doesn't seem like anybody out there is trying to grab a rebound by actually boxing out. I'm seeing the Utah Jazz going up and just grabbing a rebound right over our guys. Like hey, this is a player Piston. I'm not going to call a guy out. Go right over the bag and grab the rebound, go down the court. Or the Pistons tipping around, tipping around, tipping around, tipping around, tipping around, tipping around, and then out of bounds off of them. Tip around, tip around, tip around, then the other team gets the ball and then gets the opportunity to have a second chance shot. These are things I got to stop, because last night, Utah Jazz had 12 offensive rebounds, y'all. 12 of their 43 were offensive rebounds. That's far too many. Far too many. And it was far too low as the Pistons only having 34 defensive rebounds. They didn't play good defense at all against the Jazz. Not at all. The Jazz shot 43% from 3 and 50% from the field overall. Lauri Markkanen was out there. He was 13 of 20, 9 to 13 from 3. What? Man, I don't know, dog. I'm just looking at this thing. It is stat sheet, and it's just when Coach Casey walked up to the podium last night, you could see he was fuming. I'm gonna be just honest with y'all. We were in a press room waiting. We were waiting. This one was a lot longer than it normally is. And when they finally got to the press conference, you could tell Jaden Ivey was a little bit perturbed. They were mad with this one. The first thing they talked about was their defense. That's what they said, dog. We got to be better on defense. We got to be better connected. We got to do better at talking. It's like, we practice, we're working, we're learning, but then we come out here and it's about putting that practice to, play. And that's where they're having the biggest gap in their learning curve. If we can kind of take a peek behind the veil, Casey came in and echoed the same sentiments, that this is the only thing that they're really, really, really trying to drill in their heads right now is defense, defense, defense. Of course, all the players have their individual workouts where they're working on their offensive stuff. But as a team, Casey alluded to the fact that they are going defense, 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 defense. and he looked pissed last night. I know that there's a lot of heat on his back, and this is why Jeff says things that he's saying about Coach Casey, and not necessarily in defense of him, but in support of him. There are some definite critiques to have about Coach Casey. Definitely, some of his lineups, I don't necessarily get them, but I'm also not one of those guys that's in the inner workings of what's going on between the players and he. Certain access as it relates to press conferences and shoot arounds, pre games, post games, and things of that nature. They tell and give you a little bit of a glimpse. And when you see his frustration between what he's saying he is drilling in their heads and what they're actually doing out there on the court, that's where it just starts to speak even more that, you know what, maybe we got to take a step back and realize this is a young team. I believe the effort is there. You see it. They're trying very hard, but they're struggling right now from two things: being a young team trying to learn, and the other thing, and this is where I believe it falls a little bit more on Troy Weaver as well, personnel. Kelly Olynyk was a decent rebounder. Jeremy Grant, these guys were guys you can kind of depend on to get on it and scrap, at least within the paint. They were going to be scrappy. Even if they didn't come away with huge, gaudy rebounding numbers, there were people on the defensive end who were going to scrap. They weren't just going to be pushovers. Now, look, I get it. Kelly Olynyk was not the best defensively one-on-one, but he was still a pest. He was one of those types of players. And when he grabbed a rebound, he could take the ball up the court quickly, and he would do that often. And so when you lose players like that and who understand techniques, who understand the ebbs and flows and the bounces of the NBA ball off the rim and how the different techniques and tricks that people do to try and box you out or to try and gain a leverage. And now you're replacing that with young players in years 1, 2, and 3 who are undersized for these positions to really get in there and battle. What are you going to be left with? Jalen Duren is our only real big guy, our only real big threat to rebound. You got Marvin Bagley, who sits at 6'9", 6'10", and then everybody else is 6'8" or shorter. That's it. This team is going to struggle interiorly, defensively, rebounding the ball as well. It's going to be a struggle, but they got to figure it out, because what are you going to do? If this is the makeup of your team, at some point in time, this becomes an excuse rather than a reason. And that's why I give this year, and I'm going to continue to caution that, tell everybody this as we wrap up at least this session before we get Rod on, that this is a development year for these players. This is a development year. They're working on a lot of different things. They're trying to learn a lot of different things, and they're being put in positions to be relied upon without a lot of veteran presence or Cade Cunningham, who was supposed to be the guy to take a lot of this pressure off these guys. In our draft preview and in our season preview, we talked about the fact that, Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey, especially with the playmaking and all that, he's not going to be asked to do all that much because he got Cade Cunningham. He has Killian Hayes. Well, fast forward to the season, and what do we have? Jaden Ivey now is looking like the man the last couple games. And I'm glad that he's taking that step forward, because we all believe that it should have been Killian Hayes who took a step forward. But what about the number 5 draft pick? What about the guy that we said should be, talked about with the likes of the top 3 draft picks taken? What about him? What about Jaden Ivey? It seems like he's taking this kind of serious. He's taking it a little bit more personal. He's hearing all of the Benedict Mathurin talk. He's seeing all of the different polls and all the different power rankings for rookies. And I believe he's taking it personal, as he should. As he should. All these players should be looking at how they can get better every single day. And that's what I want to see out of them right now. It's not about, the wins and losses as much. This is a year that, they're facing an offseason where they have draft capital, trade capital, cap space, guys. Where they have a nice young nucleus, a nice young core, which they're going to add to. They're going to be one of the most attractive young teams to play with, because people are going to know that they're developing a program. And we're going to talk about that with Rod Beard. Are the Detroit Pistons trying to rebuild a team that can win, or are they trying to build a program, as evidenced by, their purchase and, of the Motor City Cruise and moving them to downtown Detroit, having the systems be the same, even kind of sharing the PR, some coaching and all of that. So we're going to get into it. All right, look, I appreciate you guys for rocking out. For Jeff Iafrate, Mr. Everything, who had to take off for the morning Woodward show. We're going to get in here earlier and start doing a lot more content for you all. And for Detroit News, Rod Beard, this is Woodward Pistons. And I'm your boy, Detroit Kool-Aid, Brandon Dent. Till next time, y'all.